All right, here we go. I'm kicking it off this month with Bill, who sent a lot of pictures. Bill, I'm going to jump straight to your finished models just for the sake of
Yeah, it's
time.
probably a good idea.
Yeah. All right. So let's, yeah, in numerical order.
Okay.
Mosquito's up first.
Well, I've where I work, we build the stuff, we build the seats for Ford, and the last month they gave us 2 weeks off again because of chip shortages and such. So I figured I've got all these models I started since last September, and I better finish them. So I did a concentrated build on 5 models. This is the first one. It's the Airfix Mosquito fighter bomber version 1. I started this one actually about 20 years ago, but I did the painting in that over the past month and couple weeks. It's nothing fancy. It's a 72nd scale kit. It's very basic, but I like the Mosquito. And again, like with a lot of these things, I'm practicing skills that I haven't used for about 20 years. So I'm, you know, I didn't put in a cockpit, so I just silvered inside the clear parts and just went from there. It's a very, like I said, a very basic build. I know it's not going to win any awards at Heritage Con, but I'm going to enter these and the other 4 and go from there. It's right. So that's that.
You've been productive. Let's see. Yes, the Camaro.
Okay, this Camaro here, this is something that actually my daughter gave me that about 10 years ago. It was already molded in black, so I buffed up the surface to make it a little more shinier than it was. The decals went on actually quite surprisingly good. There is an engine detail in there that I forgot to send a picture of. But I did as much as I could. Actually, on this one here, I tried to do it without as an actual car. So I downloaded a picture of the underside of it. Oh, okay. And it's when you see those later pictures, you'll see the kind of detail I got into. Anyways, the next one's the Razor Crest from the Mandalorian. That's the Bandai version, not the Rebel one. I haven't seen the Rebel one out yet. That guy's about 2 inches, 2.5 inches long. Now, there's apparently 2 versions of it. There's the one that's molded in a sort kind of a silverish gray color, and then there's one that's chromed. I haven't seen the chromed one, but this is the original issue that came out. So I went and repainted it. I used light gunmetal spray can to paint it. And apparently there's no decals on these things. These are stickers. So I painted everything else by hand. So the markings that are on the side, that's done by hand, and a bit of masking material and stuff like that. And the windows are painted by hand. Actually, I used a toothpick because I don't have that kind of a fine brush.
Right. No, it looks like nice detail, nice surface.
Nicely done.
Yeah, it looks good.
All right. What's this?
Yeah, now the engine nozzles there, I did a sort of a combination, put down a copper color first, and I put some yellow down on it. Then I put some blue, royal blue, and some transparent orange to sort of try to make the like, you know what I mean, heat effect.
Yeah.
Along the nozzles.
No, you did well.
I used panel marking liquid to fill in the details.
I like that one. Yeah.
That looks nice.
Okay.
Okay, this is one I actually I showed in progress back in September. It's finally done. This is the Star Wars Venator Star Destroyer. Whoa. Republic version, and so that's all put together finally, and heavily masked in various shades of gray and red and all the other thing. I heavily detailed the engines. They were stuff I showed back in September. with a lot of evergreen stripping and stuff like that. I kind of use that detail based on, I don't know if anyone remembers seeing the Bad Batch series of shows, and there was one episode where they're sort of scavenging an old Venator that's been crashed on a planet, and it showed the details of the engines that you wouldn't normally have seen in the movie because you've got the glare of the exhaust and everything, the blue glare. So this is where you would actually see the mechanical details of the engine. But that's all highlighted with panel marking and wash and various other things.
Nice.
Is that Revell?
Yes, that's the Revell kit.
Very, very cool.
Yeah, it's about 18 inches long or so.
I can feel lots of effort in this one. It's really
yeah,
nice.
that's a lot of detail painting.
Exactly.
And masks and stuff like that. So there's the detail you wouldn't normally see in the engines because there's the blue glow or whatever color they were using in the movies that would hide all that. But when a crashed thing, you see all that stuff.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it weighs a few pounds too. Now this guy here is obviously the B25, and I had tried to model it based on the CWH version, but that one's Matchbox kit from back in the 70s, and apparently the nose is a little short for what I needed to use, because when I went to put on the decals, which I took Lorenzo's advice and ordered it from a company that actually had the decal of the aircraft, I couldn't get them all on, so I had to sort of compress them. You see there, I haven't got the guns in yet, so it's almost done, and I have to figure out how to display it. It was originally going to be a wheels down version, but my daughter's cat came by one night and went off the wheels and landing gear. So I figured, okay, well, I guess it's going to be wheels up version, and again, so I got to figure out how to either make it make a cradle to hold it, or stick a pipe up its rear end or something.
Okay.
But again, I didn't want to get into trying to do the cockpit details because they were really, really, really basic. So I figured it's just cover the inside of all the windows in silver and go from there. But again, it's the techniques I haven't used in a long time, the masking and trying to set it in very close as I could to the coloration of the aircraft, especially since you couldn't get up to the museum very often to take actual pictures. I have a whole pile of pictures of it, but I can't find them. So, but,
why did you choose the D-Day markings?
What's that?
Why did you use the D-Day markings?
Because a lot of the photographs I downloaded off the internet had the D-Day markings on it.
Oh, that's a good reason. Okay.
And I thought it would be, start kind of visually striking as opposed to just a olive green aircraft.
Yeah. More impact this way, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Bill. You've been a busy guy here, so.
Yeah.
Well done, Bill.
Besides shoveling snow, I figured I'll do that.
Awesome. Okay, Brian, you're up next.
That's a good one.
Right. Oh no.
Does it come with a boom mic?
Oh, okay. Well, I guess Brian couldn't make it to the actual meeting. Number of shots. And
That looks kind of cool.
yeah. Kind of a post-apocalyptic thing going on here. Cool. All right. Well, I'll put those up on the website anyway, so we can people can check those out later. Derek.
That's the model I did. Can you go to the other slide with the white sheet, which is the one? Yeah, that one. So this is a 72 scale Fokker VF VFW 614. And somebody said earlier, I finally finished something. Well, I finally finished something. and oops, it's not a Spitfire. Anyway, so it's the old German vac form kit. I like aircraft, and I'll do plastic, resin, or vac form, but it's hard to make a silk purse out of a Sauser, and this is a Sauser. How they expect you to make good-looking engine cowlings and wheels and undercarriage legs out of vac form is beyond me. Anyway, I used my my spares parts, and that's how I got it done.
That's impressive.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's the result. I think there's one more picture before this one.
I got these two.
Yeah, that one I'd like to look at first. So that's
Sure.
the finished result after a long and painful gestation. Basic gray and white finish with a blue cheat line, and you can see the spoiler flaps, which I didn't scribe into the wing. I just painted different shades and lightened it up as much as possible. So you see the spoiler flaps and some dirtiness behind them.
That's really
The decals are all from whatever decals I could scrounge from my resources. It was sold to the Luftwaffe only, except I think 1 or 2 aircraft to civilian use. The airline buyers did not like it, and they knew their passengers would not like it, because the engines were potted above the wings, and they thought the passengers would think that the wings were therefore on upside down.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it didn't sell to the public, it only sold to the Luftwaffe. And if we could go to the third picture, right, that one, that's the finished model on my display table. Again, the decals, by the time I had finished, and if you look at the blue stripe, it consists of many bits and pieces all making a straight line. Then there's a white cheat line, which is also in many pieces, and the cheat line around the cockpit, and little bits of white on the black radome in front. The passenger door, the white is one set of decals, the blue is another set of decals, and then the labels above and below are something else. So I estimated almost 100 bits and pieces of decals by the time I was finished. So it was very challenging. And if you look at the windows, they're all transparent, as opposed to the usual airliner blackout windows you get. I don't like blackout windows. If you look at an airliner from 144 feet away, the windows to me do not look blackout. So they're transparent. And what I used was something I got from Amazon, and you guys may know about this or not. It's called Bondic, B-O-N-D-I-C.
Yeah.
It's a very viscous, transparent fluid which comes in a little squeezer tube. You squeeze it out, it stays at a liquid, but you have another little thing that comes with it that shines an ultraviolet light on it. If you shine the ultraviolet light on liquid Bondic, it will solidify within seconds. So I thought, well, that's great. This is my new way of making transparent windows. The reality is it's not very smooth, so it doesn't reflect like a flat pane of glass. And in fact, it turned out to be a nightmare. So the windows you see are as good as it gets. What I use for windows instead is liquid resin, but that's another nightmare story. Anyway, so that's my finished Parker VFW 614, and it's standing on my display table right now.
Well
Finished.
done. Very
Yeah,
nice.
that's impressive.
Really nice, Derek.
From the
Vacuum
mere
form.
fact that exactly.
Yeah.
The mere fact that it's a vac form, and
Yeah.
we don't see a lot of vac forms. And
Yeah.
I remember back in the day trying a vac form, and
Yeah.
I was like, no, this is not happening. So that's impressive.
Well, I got a lot of bad habits, and vac forming is one of them.
That glue you're talking about is one of Harvey's go-to for doing photo etch.
Yeah, he
A
loves
lot.
it.
Yeah, the Bondic stuff.
Yeah. I mean, you work with it, it goes solid with the ultraviolet light, but doing windows with it and making as many windows as that look exactly alike is a serious challenge.
Not easy.
Definitely. No, I know Harvey also likes to use it for casting small parts. You know, if
Yeah.
you can get
Mhm.
to do some reproductions, but very, low quantities. You're not going to do anything crazy with it. All right. Up next is me again. In a record, I built this thing in a month, and yes, it's another car, which is also strange to me too. So this is two bizarre coincidences happening at the same time here. This is the 124th Revell kit of the Mark One GTI. It's a car that's a bit special to me. I actually drive a GTI currently. It's a Mark 7, which is much more modern. If this would be like my dream car. I'd love to get an old Mark 1 or Mark 2 someday and fix it up, but they're very rare now. So this is about as close as I'm going to get, I think. So
That's a Volkswagen? That's a Volkswagen?
Yeah.
it is the Volkswagen, yes, Golf GTI Mark 1, I should say.
What year would that be, Eric? What year would that be?
This was introduced in 1975. It was done as a kind of a skunk works project by a bunch of engineers at Volkswagen. They had just completed the Golf, and it was released and doing quite well. And they thought, hey, we've got this this high output engine from, I think it was from their Audi division at the time. And they said, do you think we can try to shoehorn this in? And they did it without any permission, kind of behind it. And only then presented it to their bosses and said, look, we can make this kind of affordable. This was the start of the hot hatch entire revolution. Like this was the entire line of cars started here with the GTI and has carried on for many, many generations. Like I said, they've actually just introduced the Mark 8, came out this year. So they just keep refining each new chassis. So great kit, went together really well. I don't know what else I can say about it. I painted up with the Tamiya lacquers again. I'm really liking those. They go down quite smoothly. This is a neat shot because it shows the one of the kind of the defining characteristics of the GTI very uniquely. They have a plaid seats. Plaid fabric on in their interiors that was introduced in the very first version, and they've offered it ever since. They're also known for a kind of their shift knob is a golf ball. It's kind of it looks like a golf ball. It's a little larger now, but in the originals it was about that size of a golf ball. So
what did you use for the hubcaps? Where did you get that silver?
that is just Alclad stainless steel, I believe.
Looks really good.
Yeah, it came up quite good.
Here's Eric.
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 Put open. Yeah.
Quick question. Go back to on that last photo. What is that yellow line?
I don't know what that is. That was an artifact that came out. I think it came out, between the lens and the light.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure. Yeah, that's not there on the real model. It's sitting right beside me, and I that made me do a double take here. Yeah, can't see it here either. So it was just a weird effect. So yeah.
Are the tires rubber or vinyl or plastic? What are they?
Yeah, those are the vinyl type of tires.
I saw a friend of mine pointed this out to me. You know how Posh, I think Badger, they both make air erasers, which are essentially mini sandblasting guns.
Okay.
And one guy, what he does to take the shine off of tires, give them a more of a worn look, is he's set up a small little sandblasting booth in his work area or even outside, and essentially just hits it with the sandblaster, and it just does the right amount of de-sheening, for lack of a better word. So I don't know if any of the car heads like Sugan or Alex or whatever. Actually, I can probably find the link and I'll post it in the chat.
All right.
Anyway,
Let's see that engine again, Eric.
yeah.
Yeah, this was great. Came with all the like even decals for the battery here, and very cool kit.
Is there a way you can zoom in on the VIN there? I don't know. But this is I've always, like, I mean, it's
perfect.
it's kind of neat. Have you ever considered, or any of the car guys ever considered doing, because this looks great, Like, I love this, right? I was wondering what it would be like if you were to take another one and do it as a, you know, it's now a Mark One that's been used, abused, and beat up and rusted a bit, and you know, like that type of stuff, right? And I know that takes a lot of work too, right? So, and it's not for everybody, but
Another whole take on the hobby right there. Yeah. The guys
yeah,
derelict cars or yeah.
That's a great finish, Eric. A beautiful.
All right.
yeah,
finish.
it's really nice, really nice. I had a buddy of mine who used to live down the street from me when back in the day, who had a Golf. It wasn't a GTI though, right? But he had a Golf, and it must have been. This was in early 1980s, right? So it must have been, I guess, a Mark II or III maybe at the time.
Yeah.
I guess. So
Roughly.
nice car.
All right.
I wonder when the Rabbit came out in the 70s, that was the start of the small car craze.
Yeah. All right, Mauricio is here with
the Russian vehicle.
Ooh,
an
yes.
update on one of my
Yeah.
favorite lines.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Yeah, so I finally finished this thing. Took me about 2.5 months. Quite happy with it. So, I mean, just to recap, the cab and the chassis are from a Trumpeter kit I was lucky to find, and everything else I scratch build. That's the white stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah. Next picture, Eric. Okay, so some of the challenges on this vehicle, I mean, this is one of them. So I had to figure out what was the best way to, it has this tall, you'll see it, this tall mast. It's almost like a naval mast. And I think it needs to be that tall because they're hosting, at the very top there's a light, but then they have a naval actually radar. Because you can make out in some of the pictures what I believe is the Furuno, one of the Furuno radars, which is typical naval or boat radar. And so, you know, I ended up using brass rather than plastic on this, just because of the stiffness of it. And the only question with brass, you know, do I want to solder it? Do I want to super glue it? I didn't want to go and get a whole soldering kit at this point. So I ended up actually creating that little platform out of styrene, and I just used super glue. And to my surprise, it actually held up really well. Like the joint was stronger than I thought it might be. So I was happy with that. And the little Furuno thing is just it was a little toy, sorry, not a toy, a 1/35th scale Vallejo propane tank, which I cut and shaped so that because I didn't know how to get that. And that little decal I actually ended up printing it on my printer. So that kind of worked out really well. Next picture. Okay, so that's kind of the finished model, tall mast, and that's the second challenge, primarily because I'd never done this before. So lots of you probably have done World War I models. I never did. And so the whole rigging was a bit of a, you know, how am I going to do this? And I ended up actually using, well, that stretchy, I forget what it's called right now, but
Easy line?
Yes, thank you very much. Easy line, exactly. Wonderful product. And then the only other question was figuring out how to have the attachment points on the mast. And, you know, eventually the middle one, I ended up actually creating out of styrene, and the top one was something I salvaged out of some other kit, and it kind of worked out, and, you know, knotted it and then sort of ran it to the base where there's a couple of anchors, and then ran it back up, and it worked out quite well. So that was the second challenge. It worked out fine. And then the third challenge was how to do that striping in the middle. And I actually, the reason why this was problematic is primarily because the first time I painted that cab orange, I totally screwed it up. So what happened is, for whatever reason, maybe that air pressure was too high. I didn't have the product probably thin. I don't know what happened, but it ended up getting really, really rough on the surface to the point that it almost felt like sandpaper. So the next day I thought, is there a way for me to salvage this? And there just wasn't. So I ended up, and that's after I'd done all the masking for that sort of blue, yellow, and white band. So I had to essentially totally strip all the paint out of it. And so that kind of, the whole masking was a write-off. And then repaint the cab. And at that stage I said, now how am I going to do am I going to take the time again to mask it all? I just didn't have the, I guess the patience to remask it all to get those 3 lines. So I ended up actually doing a decal. So I printed decals on clear decal sheet, and it kind of worked out. They were a little bit thick, but between, you know, gloss coats before and after, and a little bit of sandy here and there, it turned out to be quite acceptable.
It looks very good. It looks very, very good.
Maurizio,
Very good.
Very nice.
Maurizio,
Yes.
Eric, can you zoom in on those attachment points? What did you use for those those rings? What are those?
You know what? It's funny enough.
Yeah.
Actually, I went and stole. My wife used to do a little bit of beading here and there, so I actually stole a bunch of her stuff. So I ended up those little round things. They're kind of almost like it's almost like it's a fine needle with a loop at the top, and it was just perfect. So I ended up, so it's metal. So I ended up just, you know, basically drilling a hole and super gluing them. And the other thing that I used that was helpful was those, I don't know what they're called in the quote beading world, but they're almost like these metal little rings, which I use to kind of give some heft where the attachments take place. And then do you want to zoom again for a minute, Eric? The other thing that I wanted to do is also show the insulator, the white insulators. And I ended up actually using a drop of just Vallejo paint to recreate those.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, that's very impressive.
Nice.
Very
Yeah,
good.
I'm really happy with
Very
this.
nice.
And it actually looks even better in person, but I think
Un vero capolavoro,
Grazie,
Maurizio. Un
grazie.
vero capolavoro.
Ti ringrazio. And then the next couple of shots are just kind of different angles. Yeah, that's just a side by side. The one at the bottom is the real thing. The one at the top, you know, it's mine. It's the one at the bottom is a little more weathered. I didn't go that far, but you know, and the stance was one of the things that I wanted to get right. So, for instance, that one early on, I ended up actually essentially breaking all the joints for where the tension torsion arms are, and repositioning them with wire so that I would get that sort of back heavy stance, which I thought was very important because, you know, it's carrying all that weight on top. So that to me was important. And
Does anybody read Cyrillic? What does that say?
Yeah, okay. So the little saying is, sorry, go ahead.
SAE. It's an acronym.
Oh, is that what it is? SAE. I was wondering about that. Okay.
And what does that Chi, Alpha, Rho?
Yeah. So
what's
that one
that?
there it's Kharkovchanka, and Kharkovchanka is the woman of Kharkov. So this vehicle was actually built in Ukraine, in a town called Kharkov, and they sort of, you know, the friendly name was the woman of Kharkov. So that's what that means. And the number 2 is the second generation, because they had an earlier generation was much boxier than this, and I prefer this one. So and these decals were all done by a fantastic guy out of Winnipeg, Bill, I forget his last name. These were some of the best decals I've ever used. I mean, they were totally thin, beautifully thin, very opaque. They went down beautifully. They you know, I used the setting solutions, and the artwork was done by my son, thankfully. He just gave him a bunch of pictures, turned them into artwork, send them over to this guy, and him and I kind of went back and forth a couple of times to get it all right. And then when I got them, they were just perfect. So very, very happy about that. And then Eric, I think there is one more picture with the base. So I did a base, just a very simple base, put a little doot just to provide some scale, and that was that. One funny thing about this is I posted in a bunch of Facebook modeling groups, and in the caption I said, you know, this was a Russian exploration vehicle, blah 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 blah, and some guy actually wrote me and say, that's not Russian, that's Ukrainian. And I should have said Soviet. That would have saved.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
When I said Russian, I clearly touched the nerve. Yeah.
Wow. Mauricio, it's fantastic work.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's I would
really,
yeah,
really
that's
nice.
incredible.
So the decals, I think the rest of the guys would love to know who your supplier is.
You know what? Yeah, no, absolutely. Let me, well, I mean, what I can do is I can send, maybe I can
Dave, send it to Dave.
David, I'll
No.
send you the email of the guy, out of Winnipeg. What a nice guy. I mean, like a super quick response time. The whole thing was fairly cheap in terms of what he charges. Very clear instructions, a real pleasure to work with this guy. And then the product itself was fabulous, like that CCCP with that symbol. I mean, it's just the quality of these decals are second to none.
They look really nice. Really, really nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, you know what's gonna happen. He's gonna give us the first decal for free, and then we're all gonna be hooked, right? That's an impressive build. I mean, I've always admired scratch builders because you guys can see stuff and how things are gonna go together in your heads, and then
Well,
you can put it, you know.
Dave,
what I
you
mean?
scratch build beer.
Yeah, beer's different.
Scratch building isn't hard until you actually do it.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Well, with Dave there, David is flavor profiles. That's the difference.
True enough. Right. So whose is this, Eric? This is
You're over to Paul now. Paul,
Oh, okay.
walk us through your shot.
Godzilla. Oh no, there goes Tokyo. There goes Godzilla. Remember Blue Oyster Cult? There's this.
I was just singing it under my breath.
Yeah, me too. Go Godzilla.
Did Paul drop off?
I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a vinyl Billiken kit from Japan.
Wow.
Godzilla 64, as he appeared in Mothra versus Godzilla. The scale is unspecified, but it's about 28 centimeters high. The suit would have been about 2 meters, and it itself was 1/25th scale.
So that'll go with a 172 scale Chaffee tank.
Oh, I don't know.
Hey Matt, how old are
Yes, sir.
Billiken kits, man? This is like 20 plus years old, no?
Yeah, this is about,
I think so,
about
yeah.
25, 30 years, this kid, I think. I'm not sure.
Wow.
Yeah, I think vinyl kits just disappeared after a while, did they not? They just stopped.
Well, Billiken came out recently with the monster, the Gargantuas, War of the Gargantuas, another Japanese monster film. So they may still be in some kind of business. I don't know.
All right, let's go to the last one that I was sent, and then don't worry, I haven't forgotten. That we have 20
Ooh, this is Glenn.
Glenn's work.
Oh.
Yes.
Is this Glenn? No. who
Yeah.
is this?
That is me.
Yeah.
No, that's
Glenn.
not me. That's the Three Stooges.
I was gonna say, Glenn, when did you start modeling Telly Savalas there?
Yeah, no kidding, eh? Actually, I thought from one angle it kind of looks like The Rock. I thought.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Maybe that's just me.
What scale is that?
That's
35th.
35th. Yeah.
35th. Okay.
Who makes the heads? Hornet?
Hornet heads. As much as I could, I have a love affair with them now, so I'll try to use them on most of the figures that I plan to build going forward. I'm already building 2 right now for another diorama, just catching up. Dioramas in name only because they didn't have figures, so I'm trying to correct that.
Which paints are you using, Glenn?
Sorry. I was using mostly lacquers for the bases, base coats, and then oils on these, on all the flesh parts.
The lacquers, what kind of brand name of lacquers?
AK Real Colors when I could, and a lot of time. I don't know if I'm going to continue with using oil paints. It was very, very labor intensive.
Oh yeah, tell me.
Yeah.
Can I ask, what kind of magnifier do you use?
I have a dime store, well, supermarket. I think they're 3.25 magnifiers, and I also have a lamp on my desk with an LED ring light and a magnifier on top in the middle of that. So I got a lot of magnification. It's the only way I can do stuff like this.
Yeah. Like that socket set, when you showed that socket set on Facebook there back a few weeks ago, that was amazing.
That all scratch built?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was completely scratch built.
Not bad at all.
Yeah. So
Amazing.
the two, so all there's three figures on here, two supervisors standing on the deck. The guy who's sitting on the platform, he by far was the most intensive work. Because I had to do a lot of the surgery on him just to make his limbs appear normal, and then build a safety harness, and then put a tether system on him.
Scotch washi.
Washi tapes.
Washi tape.
Tamiya tape. Colored Tamiya tape.
Rice paper tape.
Rice paper, yeah.
Glenn, where are you getting that from? Just out of
I
curiosity.
got that from Staples.
You're kidding me. They carry this? Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, you can get it off of eBay or Amazon as well. That particular package with 8 colors was about $15. But I needed the red. Previously, I was doing Tamiya tape and then using a red Sharpie. So I found this stuff, and I was just dropping to my knees and praising hallelujahs.
That harness in yellow.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible. How did you was that part of the kit?
No, that's all scratch built.
That's the washi tape, basically.
That's the tape.
Yeah, that's the washi tape and little bits of styrene and the little snap hooks I made. I put together a little tutorial about how I made those. But like if somebody was saying, when you're scratch building anything, you just learn to break it down into its most basic components in your mind, and then figure out what do you need, plastic or metal or foil or whatever, and just piece it together in the individual components.
Hey Glenn, where's the tutorial on those buckles? That's superb work.
I can look for the link. It's in a Facebook group called Scale Model Tutorials or something like that.
Okay.
So there it's finally done. So that means the good thing is it's done. The bad thing is no more updates on it.
Glenn, can you post the link?
Yep.
So guys, does anybody remember Ron Lowry? So those of us
Yeah.
yeah. I remember once Ron, rest in peace, was just amazing when it came to breaking stuff down, just to Glenn's point. And we were talking about World War I aircraft, and he said, yeah, I just went to the drapery store and I got some curtain rings.
Yeah.
Boom, I had wheels.
Yeah.
Right? So I think what it comes down to is just, you got to look at something, and it doesn't matter how mundane, how silly it looks, or where it comes from, and you just say, can that be turned into a part that I need? Right?
You have to be daring in your thinking. Yeah.
You know?
That's it. It's deconstructed in your mind to the basic components, and then there's going to be strip styrene, or there's going to be a metal tubing, or some metal foil or whatever to make it happen. Little things like the small hooks and things, I had them 3D printed. Little rings that are on the missile case, my friend 3D printed them. Other than that,
so Glenn, can, Matt, go back a bit. I want you to point to what was 3D printed in that lovely. I'm just curious.
the overhead winch, the chain winch. Yeah, right there. Right on that picture there.
So the winch itself is 3D printed. The chain you managed to get from a photo etch kit, or
that was from Master Tools. They just have fine chain, and I found something that worked. But my friend Paul Bourne, he 3D printed that winch. I found it on the internet. It's a current winch by Ingersoll Rand.
Mhm.
I sent him the dimensions that I need, and he printed one off. I modified it a little bit, but other than that, that's 3D printed.
Who did the 3D render? Who did the 3D CAD? Was that you?
I did it in CorelDRAW wireframe for some of the stuff. And otherwise I just sent pictures to him, said, here's a dozen shots from the internet, make it happen, please.
And if you go back to the buckles that you had worked on, I'm just curious about something. So is any of this 3D printed, or is this just
no, that's scratch built. That's scratch built. That's just strip styrene and styrene rod and some copper foil, and that's
what was the name of
tape.
what was the name of that Facebook group you mentioned?
Scale Model Guides and Tutorials, I think it's called.
So Vince, thinking about your thing of Ron Lowry, there's very few books that get on the topic of actually scratch building or really model making. And one of them I picked up with Ron's idea was called Building Warship Models by Coker. And this shows you literally how to break down things into components for.
You know what, Jonathan? I've had that Italian dude, Barbieri is in there, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. Yes, a lot of Italian stuff's here.
Yeah, and if anybody's familiar with Giancarlo Barbieri's work, he did a 1/100th scale Regia Marina Roma. And I think it was his life's work. I think it took him 30 years or something.
Wow.
And the models within the models. So there's aircraft that were catapult launched. It's amazing stuff. So you recommend Coker's book then, Jonathan?
Yep.
Beautiful.
I won't lend it to anybody, but I'll scan you bits. Since COVID started, I've lost a couple of good books and I can't find them. They've gone walkabout.
Damn. So to break it all down at the end, I just did a little short list of everything that went into this. So top search radar on top of R2D2 is scratch built. Tracking radar is detailed. The side optical sensor assembly is detailed. The entire missile loading platform and overhead winch is scratch built. The missile case, scratch built. Fortunately, I had somebody who printed off all the little label and stencil decals. It's the first 3 custom built figures I've ever done in my adult life. And that required a lot of support from modelers that I value their opinion. So his safety harness and the tether assembly, the ship deck, and the connections to the weapon. So yeah, it's finally done.
Wonderful, Glenn. Just wondering what's the actual scale of it?
It's 35th, 1/35th scale.
Well, it's 35th. I was thinking it was smaller. I was looking at the dime you had next to it, and I'm like, I probably missed it in the conversations over the past few months. But wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah, if anybody's looking for a very unique line of kits, RPG Models makes these ship-based weapon systems. They must have, I think they're up to 17 in their catalog right now. They're just fabulous. Highly, highly recommended.
Okay.
Beautiful work, Glenn. Beautiful.
Wonderful.
It's a once in a lifetime build for me.
This is their phalanx, Glenn.
Yes.
This is on my to-do list. It's a Christmas one, and I'm looking forward to it. A lot of photo action. I'm not going to go to that length, but yeah, these are nice kits. Very original.
Yeah, they just came out with a new version of the phalanx, and this is it here. It's
gosh.
Oh yeah.
35017. I just got this in from Hong Kong the other day.
Yeah.
It's slightly different than the earlier version, which you just showed.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have the side centers, and R2 is still there, but the gun is a little bit different. Same basic platform, though.
Yeah.
Just it's all in the details.
Hey, you know what I was planning? Sorry to what I wanted to do is to get this kit, do this kit, and then mount it on that US HMITT truck platform, Because
yes,
now, but you know
please,
what? Actually,
please.
Trumpeter is putting that kit out. If they're planning that kit this year. Yeah.
Oh my
Trumpeter,
God.
it's in the works. It's called.
Oh.
Whatever it's called. It's called CRAM or. But that's got to be an amazing kit.
Woohoo!
So
Yes,
that's
Glenn.
That is awesome news. That is great.
yeah.
What, another year-long project for you?
Oh, more. I've never done a truck that size, so yeah.
Okay, 2 years.
I might be able to grow a beard in that length of time.
They
Are the
won't see
kit-
on a competition table for 4 years.
Are the kits
Yeah.
resin or are they injection molded?
They're injection.
Jackson.
Yeah, with a lot of photo etch.
A lot of photo etch. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, you'll love this then.
Yes. Okay, so
Nice.
um,
Thanks,
a
Robert.
bunch of you have talked about taking months or maybe years to build a model. Last weekend, I participated in a 24-hour model build. And it's the first time I did this. And I'm not sure I'll do it again, but I managed to finish my model right at the 24-hour mark. So I was thinking, what model should I build that I can actually build in 24 hours? So I picked a 1/48 scale Churchill crocodile kit, Tamiya, because I figured it was simple enough. It's 5 screws. It has link and length track. Churchills don't have any rubber on the road wheels, so I wouldn't have to worry about painting those. And it was detailed enough that I wouldn't get tempted to add detail. So I started at noon on Saturday, not this past weekend, the weekend before. And I started off assembling the turret just because I knew it had seams that I was going to have to clean up, and so I wanted to put that together and dry. There's seams at the front.
Yep.
And there's a seam at the back, although this gets mostly hidden. And I also assembled the 2 halves of the wheels for the trailer just because of seams. Now, I don't know why Tamiya does this, but all of their 1/48 scale kits either have cast metal hulls or they give you weights for it. But I mean, it's not scale weight, because scale weight would make this about a ton. And I don't know why they put them in, but I stuck them in anyway.
Otherwise, they're too light to handle.
I don't think so. But anyway, now I was tempted to rebuild the cover over the flame thing. But then I looked at this picture, and you can see one side of it is a lot thicker than the other, and that's how they molded the kit, the piece on the kit. So I figured, what the hell, I'll just use the piece on the kit. So I started assembling the hull. It went pretty quick. Luckily, all these road wheels are just 2 pieces, and so that was easy enough. And I put together the tracks. I didn't glue them to the hull because I wanted to take them off to paint. And they don't even give you complete runs because the top part you can't see anyway. So there was less work for me to do there. And then, oh, sorry. So on the turret, once the seams were dry, I cleaned them off, and then I covered the turret in Mr. Surfacer 500 and stippled it to give me the cast texture. Now, this was really the only extra detailing that I did. So there's the kit pretty much done. The turret obviously isn't finished yet. There it is, pretty much finished at this point. I still had the trailer to do. I think it took me about 3 or 4 hours to get to this point. So I thought I was doing really well. And then I built the trailer. Trailer probably took me about an hour and a half to do, maybe an hour. And so it was all ready for paint. So I took apart the pieces and started painting. So by this time it was probably about 7 p.m. So I started at noon. This is how much I got done by about 7 p.m. And so I thought, hey, I got lots of time. So I painted base coat. I think I used Tamiya NATO green, but then I did some shading on it, except you can't really tell the shading here. And then I did this as part of a Facebook group, and there were a bunch of people before the build started talking about different things that you can do to speed things up. And one thing that somebody suggested is you can use a food dehumidifier or dehydrator, a food dehydrator to speed up drying of the paint. And so we have a food dehydrator that my wife got several years ago, and she used like once or twice and then never used it. So I took that and I tried it. It worked really well. I was able to do like the base coat and dry it in like half an hour. So that was fun. So then I gloss coated it. I painted the muffler yellow, and I didn't really care that it was streaky because this is just a base for the rust that you'll see later. And so it was gloss coated. I gloss coated that. I put on the decals, and I actually had a lot of problems with this. This decal actually doesn't come in the kit, but I went through my spares and I found a star with the circle that was about the right size. And I put it on, and I covered it with Microsol, and then left it for about an hour. And I was stupid enough to test it to see if it was dry, and of course it wasn't. And so part of it came up. So what I ended up doing after it was dry was just touching it up with white paint, which turned out okay. The problem is the decal that I used was pretty thick, and even after spraying gloss on top of it and then ultimately flat, you can see a little bit of the edge. But I mean, this was a 24-hour build. It's good enough for me. So I put the decals on, and then I added some washes. I added some pin washes. I had got it to this point where all the decals were on, and I sprayed gloss coat over it again. It was about 1:30 in the morning. Things really slowed down once I started painting. I didn't realize how much it would slow, but painting all the little detail, like painting the tow rope and the tools and stuff, actually slowed me down a lot. So it was about 1:30 in the morning. I had sprayed a second coat of gloss all over everything to seal it. And then I decided that I needed to get some sleep. So I went to sleep for about 4 hours, got up, and did some washes, did some pin washes, and weathered the lower hull.
Chuck, did you skip breakfast?
No, I went and got, I made some toast. It was only like 10 minutes. Actually, what I did was I got up and did some washes, and then went and made some toast, and then came back and took a hair dryer and dried the oil paints, and then did some more washes. And then I sprayed a flat coat, and I did a little bit of pigments. And I finished it. I took these pictures at about 11:58 a.m. So I made it in just the 24 hours.
Good for you. Great achievement, Chuck. Great achievement.
Excellent.
But I mean, it's okay. I figured when I posted these on the internet, I said, it's not my greatest work, but it's good enough to put in my display case.
Now that you have a taste for the 48 scale, will you continue on?
Yeah, I mean, I have several other 48 scale kits that are partially built. I mean, I rarely finish a kit. I did this more to finish a kit than for any other reason. Just because, I mean, I get up to a certain point and then I stick it back in the box and I start something else.
Yeah,
so
I feel your pain.
I mean, it's a hobby. If I don't enjoy doing it, I'll put it away and pull it out later. Like I just tonight, I pulled out Sherman, a Marine M4A2 Sherman that I started probably 4 years ago. And I got it to a certain point and then I stuck it in a box and I went and looked for something. Like I've decided that I want to try to get a bunch of my half-built models finished. So I went to look for one and I said, hey, maybe I'll do that one. So I pulled it out.
Hey, Chuck, Mark Norman here. Was this the challenge that was supposed to coincide with a 24-hour race at Daytona?
Yeah.
Yes.
So you were you watching a lot of the race in the background?
No. No, I was I watched did I watch? I watched several Star Wars movies.
Oh, well done.
I got something to show here quickly. I don't know if I showed this. I showed this to another group and I can't remember who I showed it to, but did I show this group my GT40, speaking of Le Mans?
Oh,
baby.
I remember seeing you building this, Dave, but,
no, you
go
showed
ahead.
it at the last PL meeting, I think.
Yeah, okay. So I missed this meeting last month, I know. So this is the new Ming Ford GT40 in 124 scale. So it's a fairly nice kit. Well, the only flaw I found in the kit was some of the panel lines. You can see here the door panel lines are not scribed very deep at all. Like they're almost non-existent. So I had to take some time. I took a few hours and I rescribed all the door lines, and there's a few other lines around the front here that I had to redo as well. You can see here I've done some rescribing now to make them quite a bit deeper. So when the model's all done and glossed, you can get a good wash on. The same with these up here. You guys can see my cursor, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
yes.
yeah. So
the inspection panels or whatever.
yeah,
right?
so these little hatches up here,
yeah.
they almost didn't exist either. So luckily I've got a bunch of stainless steel, templates and stuff. So I was able to, put those back in there. So it looked halfway decent. And there's these little antennas or whatever on the side of the car. So there's 3 antennas, and depending on whose car it is, Ken Miles or McLaren, or I think was it Dan Gurney, was he racing that year? I forget. Anyways, depending whose car it was that year, you had to have a different configuration of antennas on the side of the car. And then I know Dan Gurney's car, and I think McLaren, but Gurney for sure, he was really tall. There was a hump, over the driver's spot, and it's a piece you can add on if you have to do that. So, but Ken Miles didn't have that, and I built Ken's car. So this is after I got it primed white with Mr. Surfacer, and then I used these zero paints. These are really,
zero
really
paints.
Nice. They're just sweet. These paints are gorgeous. To give you this matte finish on there, or satin finish, you have to gloss it. But these paints are really hot. You got to put them on in real thin layers. So the nice thing is they flash off really quick. So by the time I painted all the pieces once, I could go back and start again. And I just kept going around in circles in all the pieces, and I did like 4 or 5 coats of paint. But you can see when I zoom in, like the paint goes on so thin that it doesn't obscure any detail at all. It's really, really nice stuff. It's like $14 for a bottle, right? But
where do you get them?
There's a guy out in Calgary called Paints, Models, and More. And if you go on his website, the front page is literally just an image, and you have to send the guy an email asking him, telling him what you want. And what he does is he'll tell you if he has it in stock or not. And he'll also send you a copy of an Excel spreadsheet. And he has stuff on there. Yeah. He has stuff from Studio 27 and all this amazing, like if you're a car modeler, it's just like heaven, because he's got all these detail sets and all these, high-end resin kits out of Japan, and all the really nice Japanese like photo etch stuff and everything, right? So you can get
I think I've dealt with him in the past. I just couldn't remember his
really
name.
Good. Yeah, I just go through and just copy and paste a whole bunch of lines into an email, and then he'll just send you a PDF file with the total on there, and you just send the money to him through PayPal.
And
Yeah.
and you know, the stuff shows up like 5 days later, right? So it's really good service.
Is he in
So-
New York?
Sweet.
What's that?
Is he in New York?
No, he's in Calgary, I think it is. Calgary,
Okay.
Alberta. So he's the only guy in Canada carrying zero paints, as far as I know. I do know
Yeah.
that Daly down in Toronto carries splash paints, I know. And they're a similar type thing, automotive match paints. So for the red around the headlights on here, they give you decals in the kit, and I thought I would try and put the decals on. So I went and looked on YouTube, and a few guys on there had tutorials. And I watched a 45-minute video of a guy trying to put one of these damn decals on here, using a hair dryer and setting solutions and blah, blah. I thought to myself, you know, in like 30 minutes or 20 minutes, I could probably mask the whole thing off. So I got this Japanese brand, this Aizu or whatever it is, masking tape. It's the same as the Tamiya stuff, the pinstripe tape. So I just used that, and I got the one side masked off. And, you know, as a reference, in all the reference photos, you can see where the point comes in reference to this gas filler that they have here. So I use that as my reference point for the point at the top of this. And then I put a piece of tape straight across here. If you look down from the top, this piece of tape is right straight across. And then what I did was I set this on my granite surface plate. I put an angle block here, and I measured in from the angle block what the distance was. And then I measured in the same distance over here and put a mark on the tape, so I could then put this curve on here and match it to the exact same point for symmetry, right? And the trick was, of course, getting the curve right. It took me 3 or 4 tries maybe to get the curve looking the same. But then I got that curve the same, and I did the same thing down here, and got the shape not bad. And then filled it in with Tamiya tape. And this was before I gloss coated. Yes. No, this is after I glossed for decals. That's what I did. So I glossed for decals, and I did this. And then I, of course, sprayed the red on there. And a lot of burnishing going on, of course, to make sure I don't get any leaks. Now, I know I could spray clear on here. There's a bunch of techniques. I didn't do that. You know, I'm a little more brave, I guess. I didn't get any paint runs anyways. I just used this Tamiya lacquer, they're bright red. You look at reference photos, depends on the photo and all that kind of stuff. I got the decals in this kit compared to the decals that come from IndyCals. The colors look slightly different. So I figured, you know, and then you do research on the internet, and there's a huge controversy over what color that actually was on the original car. You know, rumor has it that they decided to put these on the day before the race. So somebody went to a local paint store in Italy and just grabbed a random can of red off the shelf and came and they just painted this on the car. So I'm not sure if that's true or not, but it went on not bad. There's a little bit of texture in there, but I wasn't too worried about it because I'm going to do multiple coats of gloss, right? Well, there's the engine there. So, you know, the snake pit, I think they call that, because, you know, it's got all this crazy plumbing going on for the piping and that. There's some Gunsy lacquers in here and some Alclad and whatever else to get these colors. I was going to put some heat staining on the pipes, and I decided not to waste my time because by the time the car is buttoned up, you can't see this. And I wasn't going to have it open at all. So, well, there's the seat. They give you this really thin fabric with an adhesive on it for the buckles, which is almost a detriment because it's so sticky. If you get this stuff close to itself, it sticks to itself. So there's a lot of cursing and swearing because I never ever did photo etch seatbelts before. I've got almost no photo etch experience at all, but after some fighting and cursing, I eventually got this thing all done up, not looking too bad. The seat was done in a black gloss lacquer, so I was able to do a wash with enamel silver and then come along and clean it up after with a little bit of mineral spirits. And I got you know, this sort of signature metal rings they have on the seats of these cars.
Nice.
So it turned out not too bad. And then there's the finished car. After I, you know, got the decals on it, I gave it like 6 or 8 coats of the Tamiya LP9 gloss. And then, you know, the hardest part was not to touch it for like 5 or 6 days, right? For the paint to cure. So I came back once the paint was cured, and I used there's those God hand sanding sponges that are all the rage right now. So I wet sanded it with the God hand sanding sponge, and then I've had the Tamiya polishing compound kit. So they got a coarse, a medium, a fine, and a finish, I think it is. Or is it a coarse, fine, and finish? Anyways, I did that, and then I used the Tamiya model wax, and the shine came up pretty nice on there. I used the model wax on the all the clear parts too, and it really, you know, makes them just pop.
It's really nice.
Beautiful.
So,
Beautiful work.
that's the finished piece there. So, you know, I took a whole bunch of beauty shots of it, right? Because why not? And,
Hey, David,
Really
yeah.
nice.
another beautiful build. Now, you mentioned that when you were masking off the fenders, that there was a technique when you use clear for the more faint of heart.
Yes.
Oh, that's to prevent the bleeding underneath.
Yeah. So what you can do is you can put on a light coat of like a clear gloss, right? And what the clear gloss does, it'll seal the edge of your masking tape to prevent any bleeding, right?
Oh, that's a good idea.
So
That's
I
a
know,
very good idea.
or you can use the base color, one or the
Yep.
other, right?
Yep.
So I've never done it. I've never had to do it. I'm super anal about going along the edges and like burnishing and burnishing. And the last thing I do before I paint is I go around with like a toothpick. I think is it sitting in this picture? No, it's in the last picture. I've got a toothpick. So I've been using this same toothpick for like years. It's like a model tool now. So you can't really see it, but this end is like rounded, it's kind of smooth, and the other end is like a chisel tip, right? So I can just, it's a bamboo toothpick. So I can just go around without, you know, really damaging my paint, and I can just burnish all these edges down so I get a really, really, really good seal. But you can also do the clear on there. I worry about getting a bit of a ridge on the edge of the paint.
Yeah,
But,
I've done that before too, and you ended up with you didn't get the bleed through, but you ended up with ridges. But
yeah,
when you had to
like
fix
even
them.
using the normal paint, you get a bit of a ridge. And what I do when I get a bit of a ridge, actually, is, you know, I'll let the paint dry for a couple of days before I clear over this. And I'll take one of these Godhand sanding sponges. I'll use like a 4,000 or even a 2,000 grit, and I'll just like run it in the direction of the panel line. I'll swipe it up the panel line like 3 or 4 times, and you can just feel it, right?
Yep.
And you can feel as that ridge goes away. So it's like a swipe, and then you feel it, and then a swipe, and you feel it. You're not even going to really do any buffing at all, and it'll knock that down so you pretty much can't feel it. And then I know once I put the gloss on top of that, that ridge is going to be totally gone, right? So that's what I did there. And you can see if you look at this, I mean, there's pretty much no evidence now of that paint seam, right? It's gone.
Yeah.
I don't worry about, you know, people really worry about, you know, the edge of your decal showing, but most of the time these things were either painted on or the
stickers.
Newer cars, they're all vinyl, right?
Yep.
And so you go look at a new like Formula One car, you can see the edge of all the markings, right? On some of the Formula One cars and stuff. So I don't worry about that so much.
How many coats of LP9 did you put, and did you do any polishing?
Yeah, so once the blue was originally on, I did 4 or 5 coats of LP9, and then I let that cure overnight, and then I did my decals, and then I let the decals dry overnight, and I did the painting of the red as well at the same time, and then the following day I came on and I think it was 6 more coats of the LP9. And the LP9, the first 3 or 4 coats, or maybe first 3 coats, were fairly light, and you know it only takes about 5 or 10 minutes for this lacquer to flash off. And I'm thinning it with Mr. Color leveling thinner, and it's got about 70 or 75% thinner in the clear, right? And so it flashes off really quick. And then the last 2 or 3 coats are like, I'm going to say dangerously wet. So you're on the verge of that like clear wanting to run, right? And so I'll put one of those on, I'll give it like 15 minutes, I'll come back and do another 15 minutes, come back and do my third 15 minutes, and then I just set, I don't touch it. And I noticed the weird thing is about the lacquers and the leveling thinner is I had a tiny bit of texture in my paint, and I thought in the clear coat, and I thought, well, I won't worry about it, I'm going to come back and polish it. But the next morning I came and looked at the model, and that texture had gone away. That had leveled out so nice. And as the lacquer dries and as all that thinner flashes off of there, right, the paint cures, the paint actually does shrink a tiny bit, right? So it's almost like a vinyl pulling tight on the car. I've read about this on like actual automotive guys that do this stuff. So when the paint shrinks that tiny like 1/10 of a percentage or whatever, it just goes really nice and glossy. So the polishing was actually quite easy for me to do. Wasn't a lot of effort at all. So
David, have you
yeah.
tried that trick where when you have a lacquer finish done, you're just spraying it with pure lacquer thinner or leveling thinner just to relax the paint and let it smoothen out?
I've never tried that. I've read about that. I read about that in Fine Scale Modeler like years ago. Some guy was doing like a racing plane, and but I've never tried that myself.
Yeah, give it a try. I've done it on the advice of one of our good builders here in Ottawa, Chris Wallace, and I thought he was punking me until I actually tried it, and it's fabulous. It's any sort of texture that you might have right away after spraying, pure MCLT on it in a wet coat relaxes it and gives it just a beautiful, beautiful finish afterwards.
Now, do you do that after the paint's cured a bit, or do you do it right after your last coat?
Right after your last coat, maybe wait a couple minutes and then spray it with either pure lacquer thinner or I use MCLT. And it just smooths out the paint. It's noticeable how difference it is. Give it a shot on the paint mule, but yeah, I was quite surprised.
That's cool. So this back grill was a photo etch grill they gave you. So that, you know, it's a nice little accent on there. If you zoom in, you actually see a bit of detail through it. But so yeah, I thought that was a nice little touch to give you in the kit. You know, and they've got these little details back here and stuff, you know. And,
12 scale is next.
yeah, no, I had a 12 scale. I sold it. I decided it was too much. So, and then, you know, for the panel lines, I've got the Vallejo, their acrylic washes. And I find if I put an acrylic wash on this after I waxed it, it actually beads up on the surface, right? But it goes into the panel lines very nice. So once the wash is on, any little bit of wash that came over, I found I could just wipe off with a little piece of cloth, right? And then these latches here, these are bare metal foil. And then the door handles were just painted with chrome silver, the old Model Master chrome silver, which is a really nice chrome silver. I like it.
Nice.
And the wheels come just in gray styrene, which is nice. So I gave them a coat of, I don't even remember what I put on there. Was that that might have been an Alclad, or it might have just been a Mr. Color lacquer on there anyways. But and then I gave it a little bit of a wash just to dirty it up a little bit, give it a bit of depth and interest. So another shot there. I took a lot of pictures. And then in early 2020, this was my first pandemic finish kit I'd been working on, was this Ford GT. So this is like 50 years later, right? So, you know, they won in 1966 or whatever it was, and then they came back 50 years later in 2016, and Ford won Le Mans again, 24 hours, right? So I was excited to get my GT40 done and put it next to the modern one, right? So I thought it'd be really fun to have them side by side. So it's amazing now how much lower the cars are and stuff, right?
No kidding, eh? All the ground effects that are coming into play now.
Oh, it's just incredible. Yeah. And the cars are substantially bigger now. There's a shot here a little bit later that shows looking right. See there, you can kind of see there how much bigger the new cars are. And I got a shot of them there, that one there. That really shows like how big those cars are now, right?
Holy hell. All the tunneling, airflow, and aerodynamics, that's insane.
Yeah, it's completely crazy, right? So but yeah, so this was my first time doing a fancy gloss finish on the modern GT, and then, you know, I did this, and then I did that Felke that I did, and then I came back and did the Ford GT. So I've become addicted.
That new GT is designed in Canada.
Yeah, I know. Multimatic, right? Makes those.
Multimatic has the suspension, and that car actually drops. You can drop it into if you set it on race mode, it'll drop like 3-4 inches.
Yeah, I've got a friend in the London Model Club, and his son works at Multimatic.
Wow.
And then I was watching Jay Leno got number when the street version, he got number 2, right? Number 1 got auctioned off, and he was talking about all the different stuff and showing the race mode and everything. And if you can program the car that if you come to like your house and pull in the driveway and you have to like raise the car back up to pull in the driveway, you can put it in the car and the GPS knows in the car. So when you pull up to your driveway, the car automatically raises up, but don't even doing anything anymore.
Very
right?
cool. Yeah.
You can set, I think there's like 100 locations you can set in the preset memory for the
Oh
car.
my
It's
God.
completely, I mean, for $500,000, a better thing for you, right? A little bit.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. They'll still probably break the splitter, but whatever. On a
yeah,
speed bump.
maybe, right? Maybe. So anyways, like I was saying, I've become addicted now to, doing these gloss finishes on cars. So that was my big hurdle, I think, from not building as many cars over the years. So now I've sort of that fear is gone. So I'm really enjoying building cars now as well.
So now you have the car that matches your Falk fighter.
Yeah, that's right. Pretty much, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful work.
Right. Anything that you guys want to talk about, just feel free to throw it at me. I know that, like I said, normally I would just say, okay, well, whatever Harvey wants to talk about, we can talk about, because I don't have any real stuff myself to discuss. But I know that I always enjoy having this type of meeting where we're just kind of sitting around throwing things out and kind of showing each other stuff and kind of explaining, you know, what we're doing and how we're doing it. And to see the work too is also inspirational, in my opinion. I don't know about anybody else, right? But I mean, I see people like, I look at, like I said, like you look at Maurizio's build, like his scratch build, and it's like, okay, so maybe I'm being too hard on myself, because we're all our own worst critics, right? Maybe if I just take a little more time and try it again, or do this differently, right? You know, I think it can all be done. I think it's really helpful. Right?
That was a great meeting, David.
Okay.
Yeah, wonderful, guys. Wonderful.
All right.
Yeah.
See you in a month then.
Yeah, for sure. We'll see you guys next month.
Take care.
David.
Good night, everybody.
Guys,
take care.
Night, all.
Bye, guys. Good night.
Night, everyone.